Good evening, my name is Mary Wong and I'm a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner in Toronto and acupuncturist. And tonight I am going to share with you a story of hope because it is the new year and we all like hope. And so here it is. I was really elated to hear from a patient of ours at a live holistic health clinic, and she just announced the birth of her baby, and she had many challenges. And when she came to see us back in last year, she came in at 37 years old. Her name is Kellie. I'm just fabricating her name just to not reveal her identity, just to be well, respectful of her privacy. So anyhow, her history is this. When she went to a fertility clinic to consult with them at a local fertility clinic in Toronto, and she commuted from a town, an hour away, she had been trying for 2 years. But when they went to a fertility doctor, what they found out was her husband was in fact azoospermic, meaning that he did not produce any sperm and was shooting blanks. So, needless to say, no amount of trying or relaxing would be able to help them conceive. And what they ended up doing was picking out an unknown donor to provide sperm samples. So they purchased donor sperm, and in order to achieve pregnancy, they would have to go through IUI, so intrauterine insemination, which requires almost something like equated to a turkey baster technique. And in her case, because she was at the fertility clinic, when you see a woman that's over 35, of course the very first thing that they say is, you are of advanced maternal age, so there's a possibility that your egg quality might be shot simultaneously as your husband having no sperm. So that's really not a great way to instill confidence in anyone. And certainly by the time she came in, she already had a little history where they had already done 4 back-to-back cycles of IUI, the turkey baster technique, with the donor sperm. And the very first IUI cycle with medication, she did get pregnant, and it was considered chemical because they initially saw that there was a positive pregnancy, but then immediately thereafter the HCG beta, the pregnancy hormone that is detected through the bloodstream, went down, so she miscarried naturally. And then unfortunately the months after that they did back-to-back IUIs, and she did not get pregnant. Now after that, the 4th time she tried, they did result in a pregnancy, and that was of 7 weeks. And so they saw the gestational sac, but they didn't see a heartbeat, and still considered early, so they waited another week, and unfortunately for them there was no heartbeat, and in the end she miscarried naturally a couple of weeks thereafter. So needless to say, again, after thinking, gee, we've licked this, we solved it, we're surrendered to doing IUI with a donor sperm, not my husband's genetics, but this way at least we can have a child. And then to have that happen, it becomes, when you think and you believe that, okay, the IUI is going to be a no-brainer with the donor sperm, so I will have that baby. And when it doesn't happen quickly, it really hits the heart. And by the time she came in, she was a bit of a mess. And in fact, she came in right after the 4th miscarriage. So it was a difficult time, very stressful time, especially when simultaneously she had a sister-in-law who did not even hold down a stable job, and she had a boyfriend and was pregnant with him after only a couple of months, and she was boistering about that. And it was a difficult time because we're approaching Christmas time. So when she came to see, oh, you know what? I think I have the story a little backwards. Let me reiterate. So when she saw us at miscarrying, and we worked on her for 1 month, and she really didn't want to stop and work at her health, meaning taking a break. She just wanted to keep going forward, and so she ended up doing another IUI right after her pregnancy failed, and in that pregnancy she also got pregnant, and after that's after seeing me for just a couple of sessions. And again, unfortunately, this amounted to a pregnancy that took for a little while. Let's see how long it took. At 6 weeks, they did see a heartbeat this time, but the growth was behind, and they ended up again finding out that it was a non-viable embryo. And unfortunately, the fertility clinic that she went to at the time did not do DNCs, meaning they would not be able to perform a miscarriage for her, assisted. So she ended up going to an abortion clinic. So imagine this. You're a person desperately wanting to get pregnant, have a family, and yet you go to an abortion clinic where it's filled with teenagers, and as she put it, and this is fact, you know, these were people that were more down and out, and just not in a position to have babies. So thankfully they were insightful enough to not carry through, but it was very difficult for her, and it was a really horrible experience to witness the chatter in the waiting room between these women. And she said some of them were drunk or on drugs, and they were very young and teenagers, and she was by far the oldest woman there, being 37. And it was just a horrible experience. And to top that off, the abortion, the DNC, was really painful. And simultaneously, they wouldn't let her go because she ended up having low blood pressure and a lot of blood loss after the procedure. So horrible, horrible experience. So it left a bad taste in her mouth as she's trying to conceive life. So needless to say, we kept working on. She disappeared for a little bit, but this occurred literally right before Christmas time, and that was when, knowing that her sister-in-law was around, and she really was not up to seeing her, and because she was pregnant, the sister-in-law, and she was again not necessarily in the best position to have a child, being that she had no job, and being that her partner was not necessarily a long-standing partner, and we had no idea where it was going to go. So in our treatment, when she told me about this, I just thought, you know, give yourself permission to just say no. And I know, and I realize that it's Christmas time, but perhaps you need to have some love and kindness, and have some self respect and self-preservation, and just be able to say no. And she ended up not going, and made a good excuse, like as she was ill, and which she kind of was, and just to kind of avoid that difficult time frame. Anyway, after that, we were working with her for a good 4 or 5 months before she went and did another IUI, and in the within all that time frame, so some of the lifestyle advice I gave her was, she was a vegetarian, and you can be a healthy vegetarian, but when I inquired about her diet, it actually wasn't the best vegetarian diet, because I asked her what she ate for protein, and yes, she ate lentils, so that's great, but it's hard to digest, and she had IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. So in terms of being able to absorb the nutrients from that protein might be challenging. And then she ate a lot of like veggie burgers and other fake meats. So again, I told her, you know, in terms of trying to be healthy, those are not necessarily the best options, because fake meats, pretend meats, typically are made that highly processed and with soy products that are fermented and really not in the best of shape. So I encouraged her to try to eat more whole foods as a vegetarian, and if she was able to withstand it, maybe add in something like eggs. And thankfully she did. And what I explained to her, in Chinese medicine, like treats like. And here she was, 37, and wanting to have good quality eggs. So she ate eggs, and she lived near the country, so she was able to drive to a farm and get fresh farmed eggs, and that was great. And so that was one thing that she did. And then again, just stopping altogether the fake meats. And here's an issue I have, by the way, for vegetarians. I was a vegetarian myself for, I was a vegan for 4 years in my 20s, and then I was a vegetarian. And in that time frame, I also didn't understand. It's like, well, if I choose not to eat meat, why am I choosing products that are pretending to be meat? And you got to know that it can't be healthy, because how do you make meat, non-meat taste like meat? It's going to have a lot of additives. So anyway, you got to kick that out of your diet. And so she did. And to preface, by the way, she was overweight. She was a little like myself. She was probably about 5'1", and I would say even 30 pounds, maybe 25 pounds overweight. And so, that's something to look at. However, I don't want the focus to be on actual weight loss. And it's truly about eating healthy, eating a balanced diet, because that in of itself can help to decrease the weight anyhow. So again, we were focusing on lifestyle and dietary habits that were healthy versus dieting to decrease weight. And that's how we sustained a healthier lifestyle for her. And the other thing that I added in, that she added in upon my recommendation, was adding in meditation that she downloaded, because I said, how can we attempt to decrease our stress level? She commuted downtown to work every single day, which took about an hour and a half each direction. So it's like, wow, what a great opportunity to perhaps listen to some recordings that has you calm your stress. And so she did. She found walking meditations and meditations that that would be appropriate for being on transit, and they are timed specifically, so then you're not going to fall asleep and miss your stop, for example. And so that's what she incorporated. So it's not about adding more to be healthier. Really, it's about, with the time that you have, how can we manage it so that we decrease our stress? And so that's what she did, on top of the weekly acupuncture that we did, which thankfully was also really helpful in mitigating her stress. And she certainly looked forward to it. And then adding in healthy supplements. And that was that. So by the time 4 or 5 months rolled around, she did an IUI again with the same donor sperm, and this time she did get pregnant. And just last week she emailed me, and she just delivered a really healthy baby. So I'm really, really elated for her. And throughout her pregnancy, we did do acupuncture sessions, especially for the first trimester, when of course, when you're pregnant and having had multiple miscarriages, and the loss and the fear of loss, that's really stressful. So in this case, we really wanted to support and mitigate that stress. So we did acupuncture on a weekly basis, which helped. And then she also added in hypnosis, which I recommended her to do. And she did that with Sean Gallagher, our awesome hypnosis practitioner. And that she found that very helpful, because it helped delve into some of the subconscious conversation that was seeping in. And when that conversation seeps in, I say it can, in fact, impact us all the way down to the cellular level. So if her belief was that I cannot have a baby, or I have fear of having a baby because I will miscarry, so having that as her truth, which is not actually a reality, can really impact cellular development. So I really wanted to kind of start off with a fresh, clean slate. And doing that may allow her body to respond in a different way and produce healthier eggs. So, don't take this as take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I don't have scientific evidence on this, but certainly we know in the science of epigenetics that our emotional well-being does impact our physical well-being. So, what I want to tell you with this, in this case, that, she also being 37, she was 37, I don't know if I said that, and then 38 by the time she conceived. When you go to a fertility doctor and she's told that she is maternally old, that's the other piece that adds in. It's like, oh my gosh, I have crappy eggs and they're just going to go downhill from here. And that belief, we have to really kind of wipe it off and just know that there's a capacity to create new life, and every egg that develops can be potentially new, and instead of potentially bad, it can be potentially good in the environment that it develops in. So I want to leave you with that. And the other piece I want to add in for those that you're trying currently is that when you see that next person walking down the street with child, or that person sitting there pregnant, just know that some of them have stories, and some of these stories may be that they had trials and tribulations in having children. So, because I know for some, looking at pregnant bellies or looking at children can be very painful. And perhaps coming from a different angle and saying, wow, maybe this person had it just as hard. And perhaps I can grab onto their story and say, you know what, that can happen to me. Maybe that can make a difference. And I say this because my personal experience with that is when I was practicing and helping others going through fertility challenges, you were my hope. Because even though I see you in the depths of despair, I ultimately see most of you, many of you, conceive and have child to term, healthy child to term. So I grasped onto that. So I hope that you can grasp onto this story, and do check out my book Pathways to Pregnancy, as there are 15 stories of hope, one of which is my own. I revealed my story in one of my earlier posts, so you can check that out as well, but you can certainly read about it in my book. So I'll leave you with that tonight, and I shall see you next Wednesday, where I will be talking about sleep and the benefits of sleep. And so please tune in next Wednesday evening, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I shall see you then. And in the meantime, check out more of my posts, like my page, go to my webpage, marywong.life, go to our clinic page, which is aliveholistichealth.ca, and I shall see you next Wednesday night. Be there, be square.